Hey, welcome to Bookalina. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. Today's video is going to be my favorite books from my childhood. This was a really fun list to compile. I had not even thought about some of these books for a very, very long time, and it was fun kind of going down memory lane and picking these out. So first on my list is The Monster at the End of This Book. It was released in 1971. It was written by John Stone. The premise is extremely simple. You are going through the book and Grover from Sesame Street is begging you not to continue flipping the pages because he's telling you that there is a monster at the end of the book and you really need to stop. And you get to the end of the book and spoiler alert, the monster is actually Grover himself. My mom used to read this book to me all the time, and it's just a really funny, sweet little book. Next up is Where the Wild Things Are, released in 1963. It was written and illustrated by Maurice Sendak. I feel like this is most kids' favorite book. I don't know if it's as popular today as it was when I was a kid. I'm not really sure, but I know when I was a kid, it was everywhere. Everybody knew this book. Everybody read this book. I know that they made a feature film based on this book. I have not seen it. If you've seen it, did you like it? Was it any good? Comment down below and let me know. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, released in 1981. It was written by Alvin Schwartz. This was a book that I enjoyed when I was a little bit older. But yeah, obviously the illustrations, I've mentioned this in previous videos, the illustrations are really what make the book. The stories themselves are kind of silly. Some of them are a little creepy, but I would say most of them are kind of silly, a little lightweight, but it's the illustrations that really make this book. I mean, they're terrifying. They're friggin' terrifying. The Butter Battle book, released in 1984, was written by Dr. Seuss. This is my favorite Dr. Seuss book. And, you know, when I was a little kid and it was read to me, I didn't quite get it. I mean, I got it, but it didn't have the same impact as it does when you're older, because even though the premise is so simple, you have these two creatures from opposing towns. Okay, so the fight is between the Zooks and the Ukes. Yeah, so the Ukes think that everyone should eat their bread with the butter side up, and the Zooks think that everyone should eat their bread with the butter side down, and it creates this this war, and each side keeps building bigger and bigger and bigger weapons. Eventually, each side comes up with the ultimate weapon to destroy the other side. It's called the Big Boy Boomeroo. Obviously, the book is very resonant today. It was even more resonant during the Cold War era, but it's a great representation of the wars that we still fight today over things that seem kind of arbitrary. One of my favorite children's books, for sure. One of my favorite books of all time, the Butter Battle book. Next up is Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day. It was written by Judith Viorst, released in 1972. So in the book, Alexander is having a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day, and he's not getting a lot of sympathy from his family. And basically the moral of the book is that everybody has bad days, and it's just a day, and the following day you can start fresh. And my favorite children's book of all time is called The Top of the Pizzas. It was written by Bill Basso, and it was released in 1977. The book is about an ogre who is making pizzas for a living, and there's a customer who wants to meet the chef of this delicious meal, and she goes back into the kitchen and she finds this poor ogre, and she just keels over because he's so ugly, and he winds up losing his job. He eventually finds work making pizzas on top of a New York City skyscraper. It's called Ogre Pizzaola. And it's such a great book. I remember the story, and I loved the story growing up. I also loved the illustrations. The way the pizza was drawn always made me want pizza. Even though it's not like a super realistic illustration or anything. There was just something about the way that it was illustrated with the cheese stretching, and it just always made me want pizza. My favorite kids book of all time. I loved this book so much growing up, and when I got a little bit older, I was able to get my hands on an old copy of it, and I just love it so much. If you have kids, I would recommend finding that book. I feel like all the other books that I mentioned are pretty famous and are like easily accessed, but I never heard anybody talk about The Top of the Pizzas before. But I would definitely recommend you checking that out. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for sticking around. That is my list of my favorite children's books of all time that I loved growing up. I hope you enjoyed. Have a safe week, and I will see you very soon. Take care.